trying to really, really engineer this experience from start to finish is a massive amount of work to perfect.
Yeah, I mean, but if you've ever tried to use Clay, or any of the marketing attribution softwares, it's the same level of complexity because it's what's driving the dollars, right? And I think that's where the sort of the shift is. No one struggles with the level of complexity it takes to get someone from having no idea who our company is to introducing what the company is to seeing the value to running through that entire arc of learning to actually sign up. That's a really complex way to cut through the noise. And we sort of understand that because sales and marketing is really, really like it's a known thing and we all understand it. Well, we should challenge ourselves to go, why would it be less complicated to grow the long-term expansive dollars than it is to get the first dollar?
And we're back for another episode of the Startup Hustle. This is your host, Matt Watson. Very excited to be joined today by the founder and CEO of AdoptIQ, Brett Sears. We're going to be talking about customer onboarding and training and all these kinds of things today. We put a lot of focus in sales and selling our software to other people. But then a lot of times we really suck at actually getting them to use it, see value out of it, learn how to use it. They all churn, like we do all this work and then we end up losing the customer. So we're going to talk about how to improve that today. Brett's got some experience with that. I've got a lot of experience with that. Should be a great conversation today. Before we get started, I do want to remind you that today's episode is brought to you by Fullscale, which is my company. We have over 300 software developers in the Philippines helping dozens of other companies build whatever kind of software you need. Front end, back end, mobile, QA, whatever it is. Check us out at fullscale.io. Brett, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited.
So you're saying once people buy something, they're going to keep it forever. They're going to pay for it forever. They're going to be experts at it. They're just want to keep giving you money.
Right? We've all seen that funnel, right? Where the sales comes in and the little dollar signs are at the bottom and we're like, look, our job's done. That's sort of what we all think or hope.
Well, so before we started recording, you said a great quote here. Recurring revenue requires recurring value. Right? And the key is once you sign somebody up for a product, even if it's within a trial or paid, one of the most important things is getting them to that aha moment, like as fast as possible, right? Like I installed your software, I sign up for it, I do the trial, I do whatever the thing is, as fast as possible, getting that person to see value and having that aha moment, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because that's sort of hard to even when we work with founders or when you still work with startups or sort of people that are still developing their product, actually figuring out what those ahas are, as weird as it is half the battle. It seems so obvious because we know why software builders, why we build software. We're like, oh, we're doing this. But this is usually like an end, and there's so many steps in between that trying to fill that gap is a major issue.
Well, and sometimes it's the simplest of things. So, like at Stackify, one of my old companies, we were kind of more of a product-led growth kind of company. We really relied on free trials, and a certain percentage of them, using the product, they like it, and they pay for it, and it was kind of more low-touch sales process, right? But the problem is, like when our development team is testing the product, when we test the product, we test it from what like a real customer looks like. Like, oh, you've been using the product, you've installed it, like we're testing it from all that scenario. We don't spend a lot of time testing it from what it looks like from a brand new account that's empty, which is a total different experience, right? But that's what every one of your new customers has, that experience of like, what does a fresh account look like? And there's so many like simple things here that a lot of people struggle with. Like they don't stop and think about what does that brand new account look like? And we're all experts at our own product, right? We use it every day. We're making changes to it. We're fixing bugs, writing features. We're like experts at it. But we never stop and think of like, well, how does this look to somebody who's never used it before? It's a totally different experience.
Yeah, it's actually the probably one of the primary reasons that we built AdoptIQ. We were talking earlier that we really the original name of the company was Training Layers, and the premise of it was the ability to add layers on top of software. And one of the primary ones that we call, and we do in Adopt.IQ too, is the ability for users to turn an on-demand layer. So we have a Y layer, and we're like, hey, whoever your most articulate, excited person is, go on your dashboard and actually explain why this matters. We do so much why selling to get the user there, right? All the blogs, all the webinars, all the LinkedIn posts are why. And then the moment they onboard, it's what and maybe some how.
It's
There
feature,
is
feature,
no
feature,
space
feature.
for why.
Yeah.
But why is how people change behavior. If I don't understand what I'm going to get from this, why am I going to put in the energy to do it? And I think there's a huge gap in being able to deploy whys directly in the software so that we can drive change. Because what you're saying is, and I do it every week, I have a ritual where I go in and I'll load up some software and I will just sit at their empty dashboard. And the first question is, do I have any idea what I'm doing?
Yeah.
And if I've had the founder next to me, I'm like, you realize that you're making me, the user, figure out all of the cool reasons why you built what you built with no reference.
Yeah, and another way that some people solve that is a brand new account will have like training data in it or fake data and things like that, which I think can be helpful too. It really depends on the type of product that you have,
Yeah.
what kind of product and service that you have. But you have to really, really think about that first time customer experience and getting them to that aha moment as fast as possible. And actually, I had Brad Parker on the podcast, and when this airs, it will have been, several weeks ago. And I wrote a newsletter about this too, and he talked about the importance of thinking about grand opening day. It's like when you first start your business, everything is perfect, everything is clean, you have scrubbed all the floors, everybody's got a smile, everybody's shaking everybody's hand and kissing the babies and all this kind of stuff. You're putting your best foot forward, right? And after after that restaurant or that store has been open for a while, like all that goes away and like you got a bunch of grumpy people that work there. And that's part of the problem, right? Like if you really want to be super successful, you have to put your best foot forward all the time. And if you think about how that applies to software, it really applies to the onboarding. It's like, how is that onboarding experience as perfect as possible? So just like you walk into the store and everything looks shiny and new and it all makes sense, I know what to do, I know why I'm here, right? Like you want to have that same mentality, and the training and onboarding and the stuff that you guys are trying to help with goes along with that, right? You're like, just like you got the nice person there at the front door, like, hi, how can I help you? Go here, right? Like you need to accomplish the same thing with the training to some degree of people got to figure out, how do I use this thing? Why am I using it? To your point, why am I here? And a lot of people really totally miss this in their software. It's just completely absent from their products.
Yeah. And it starts with, and there's all sorts of sort of reasons I found, but one, we have, and you hit on it earlier, we live in it so much. And so it's
Yeah.
so obvious. And a lot of people who build software have been around software for a long time.
Yeah.
And so your ecosystem, your entire community understands software, right? For me, right, I built a professional services company. Like for 25 years, I was around people who use software because they had to, not because they wanted to. It was a requirement to execute a job. So you approach it very, very differently when you're nervous and you're scared and you have something you have to get done, and this tool is supposed to help you and you don't know how to do it. The level of anxiety and stress increases. Well, when you build for that particular mindset, you approach it very, very differently than if you're like, well, all my friends know how to do X. Everyone I know knows how to do this. You sort of take that for granted. And I think that's where we found that's where a huge drop off in who's being talked to when they're building it.
Well, and how do you think we solve that problem? How do we improve that?
So, I mean, I think a lot of it's mindset, right? It really is these types of conversations. I think that, we were talking about there's a shift. You went into the funnel part in the beginning, right? We spend so much time as an industry focusing on the sales funnel. There's so much on sales and marketing and attribution and all of these resources that go to make sure that we arm that sales team and that marketing team with every tool imaginable. But then after that revenue handoff, onboarding sort of goes to CS. and you're like, oh, they're supposed to handle the problems. And we're like, wait a second, like the post-sale success team from onboarding and support, customer success, product, and the renewal team, like we're in an NRR world. Like the value of SaaS isn't the little dollars coming out of the bottom funnel. It's about the fact that it's expansive, that we can grow from 10 million to 100 million because we know how to get a customer. And if we can retain them and expand them, it is inevitable, right?
Yep.
And that is the beauty of SaaS. But that means we got to prioritize it. We got to put more than just oh, you're a customer services person to this really is how we grow, how we get into multiple departments. Or everyone talks about multi-threading on the buy. It should be multi-threading on the renewal, right? If you can get into 3 departments, right, the level of renewal and expansion grows so much more because you have a champion there. Everyone's got to get somebody who's willing to die on the hill of your software. And that isn't the one department you get into, that's the multi-threading of it.
Well, and I'm the perfect example of this. So I've signed up for a lot of SaaS products, especially like weird little marketing tools and AI tools and things like that, playing with. And I may sign up, I go play with it for about 10 minutes, and I may cancel immediately. If I don't see the value of this thing and why I would want to continue it, if I don't figure it out very quickly, right? If I don't get to that aha moment, I cancel immediately. You had like a few minutes of time. Like that was it. And from again, every kind of product and service is totally different, right? But like at Stackify at my company, at the height of it, we would get about 1,000 trials a month that would sign up for our product. Only about a third of them would even install our software, right? And so, that's a whole different problem of like, well, how do I actually get them to log in? How do I actually get them to install it and use it? But then you talk about, okay, I got them to install it, I got them to use it. I would only have about a third of those that would actually become a paying customer, right? Like just because you get somebody to try your product and you're only converting, say, 20, 30% of those people that actually want to pay for it or keep it, if you can improve that percentage, it's huge. Like it's a huge difference of those conversions from 20% to 40% to 50%. It's the difference of being in business or not being in business, right? And
Yeah.
so it really comes down to all these little details of improving the onboarding, the training, them understanding when I signed up for this thing, why did I sign up for it? What value do I get out of it? And to your point, like how do I invite other people in the company to come use it? Because we know if more than one user is using it, the engagement of it goes up. But the problem I saw at Stackify was it was like a whole different ongoing project forever to optimize all of this. Like actually optimizing this in some degree, I don't want to say it's more complicated than the product itself, but it's almost more complicated than the product itself. Like trying to really, really engineer this experience from start to finish is a massive amount of work to perfect.
Yeah, I mean, but if you've ever tried to use Clay, or any of the marketing attribution softwares, it's the same level of complexity because it's what's driving the dollars, right? And I think that's where the sort of the shift is. No one struggles with the level of complexity it takes to get someone from having no idea who our company is to introducing what the company is to seeing the value to running through that entire arc of learning to actually sign up. That's a really complex way to cut through the noise. And we sort of understand that because sales and marketing is really, really like it's a known thing and we all understand it. Well, we should challenge ourselves to go, why would it be less complicated in full candor? Why would it be less complicated to grow the long-term expansive dollars than it is to get the first dollar? Like we might actually want to flip the way we think about it and be like,
Yeah.
yeah, the level of expertise. That's why we build tools on, hey, what's going on? What are the critical features? What are the percentage of users that are, right? When we can get those insights and clean dashboards, right? The better that information can be illustrated and displayed, the easier it is for more people to use. Right. So this is the problem we're trying to solve is how do we bring this level of complexity and make it approachable so that people can be actionable? You
And really
know,
what you're focused on there is reducing churn, right? Increasing retention, but also increasing expansion, right?
yep. Yeah, it's
And
full
so
revenue. And one of the last little things is that there's been a bunch of studies and realized that one of the big problems, you're like, how do you've got you in there for 2 minutes or 3 minutes, right? As a new user. One of the dilemmas is people don't ask for help. 1 out of 26 frustrated or confused users actually ask for help. There's billion-dollar companies that have been built servicing the one. The problem is, out of the 25, people don't know what to ask. You actually have to be able to articulate the question to get value out of figuring out that answer. And so if we can't figure out what we're actually trying to do, we don't know the question to ask, it's easier to just leave because
Yeah.
we assume it's not there. And so one of the questions is, how can we solve the questions for the 25? How can we put them in charge of their learning without having to articulate the question? And
And
so,
And I'm a
yeah.
huge fan of in-application help, right? Like I'm looking at this setting, I'm looking at the screen, I can hover my mouse over a little help icon or there's a little video or a little tutorial or whatever it is, but probably only when I want to see it. I kind of hate it when I sign up for something and it immediately slaps you with that stuff and makes you go through like some walkthrough. I'm like, no, no, no. Let me play with it. Let me touch everything. And then if I want help, make it easy for me to ask for help, right?
So I should take you on the tour. You should just become our demo guy because it really is about user centric. I am a quiet screen guy. Like, don't interrupt me when I have work to do. But which is why we went layers, right? Just to sort of tell the story is we're like, hey, you could imagine turning on an onboarding layer or a support layer or an advanced feature layer that then populates it so the user gets to turn those on. Because as software companies, we know where all the mousetraps are. We know where the problems areas are. We know where the complexity pieces are. We can do all of those things really easily because we know where they are. So because it's solving that. Yeah, users being told that it's important that you focus on this now is the software company telling them what to do, not them in charge of it.
Well, we talked earlier about expansion revenue and how important that is. And again, it depends on your type of business if this applies to you. But like at Stackify, it really applied because we'd have people sign up for a product, and let's say they paid us $500 a month. If we can expand to another team, or they can install, more instances of our software, be that more data usage or seat licenses, however you do your product, that expansion is huge. And actually, at our company, we had uh, negative churn. We had net customer growth. So maybe every year, 10% or 20% of our customers would cancel, like most companies do. But the ones that stayed would grow quite significantly. And so they would overcome the ones that churned. And all of these kind of strategies we're talking about are important for those customers expanding, seeing value, trying to help, grow the business and grow the accounts.
Yeah. Yeah, and anyone who's listening, like this isn't easy, right? Trying to figure out how someone's going to get the value from what you're building is hard on two parts. One, because you have to accept that it's not intuitive. I talked to a bunch of folks, and they're like, "This is a UX problem. Onboarding and usability is a UX problem." And this is one of those hills that I die on. I'm like, no, 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 no. Software can't be intuitive. Complex software literally can't be intuitive because if it's a multi-stepped process, I have to know what to do in order to value the button being where it's supposed to be. Now, once I know what I'm supposed to do, that button should be there. And that's where good UX really changes it. But if you have to do 4 steps, if you're building a workflow and you've got to do multiple things, UX isn't going to solve that. Guidance is like knowing what to do, and actually the support is there. And accepting that is sort of the first part because then you're not saying, oh, my product's not good. We're saying we have to educate our users to extract that value. Like that's not a hard concept once we accept that that's part of the process.
And so there's a lot of software out there that helps do like walkthroughs, live chat and chat that has help built into it. There's a lot of different things that exist out there. But how well do you think those things actually work? How well do you think people actually use them?
So I think that the onboarding, the way we look at it is onboarding and support like that is an introduction. So me telling you, hey, here's a good book, that's really valuable. It's not the book though. The problem is that when we want it to be the entire book, right? And so that's where I think it's misaligned expectations of what it's actually supposed to do. It's supposed to introduce to a user, hey, here's some things here that you're going to need to know. Now, how do we arm the user with the understanding, oh, I'm going to get value from this? We go back to the why, give them the opportunities to do, right? Sort of have those explanations. So they work as well as people know how to use them for what they're designed to do. That's where the breakdown becomes. And that's a hard problem because everybody, right, is trying to figure that out for their own software.
Well, and a big part of the struggle is keeping all that information up to date as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And wanting to, figuring out costs and time and energy and stuff like that, right? We're big believers in micro videos, right? There should be little videos I don't believe there should be a 20-minute video explaining 47 steps. I think there could be 47 videos explaining, 10-second steps. Here's where it is if it's available, because that's where people struggle. But software changes. And so I talk to folks and they're like, yeah, but we're doing a new release next week or next month. And so we don't want to spend the time and the 4 hours it takes to do a 1-minute video. And so there's lots of reasons why it doesn't work. But again, if recurring revenue is the process, then that should be a priority action, and then find some tools that can help.
So in one of our internal projects at Full Scale, and again, today's episode is brought to you by Full Scale. If you need help hiring software developers at a very affordable rate, check us out at fullscale.io. One of my employees recorded 3 Loom videos that were all 3 5 minutes long. And she sent them to me, and my response back was, where is the 60-second version of this? I'm not going to watch 15 minutes of videos. It's not going to happen. My attention span is not that long. And so she actually sent one back that was exactly 59 seconds. And she went through, I think, the same material in like a super fast pace, like, and I was like, thank you, that was perfect. And I think that, to some degree, I think short videos like TikTok and all that stuff has also changed some of us. And I was, an SEO expert from Google was posted about this the other day. I saw, he's like, we used to think that you do a search on Google and you go to some website, if you spend a long time there, that meant that like they were getting a lot of value out of the content. And he's like, now I think that's changed. That means that they're not getting the answer fast enough. Like you give them what they want to know as fast as possible and stop with all this other madness of making them go through all this material, right? You see, I don't know if you ever see that, like you search for a recipe or something, you go to some website and it's got like a novel of information and eventually at the bottom it's got the recipe. I think we're seeing the internet change where everybody wants to see like, quick response, quick answer. Like I don't want a 20-minute video. I want a 60-second video or maybe 65-second video or 90-second video, right? Like I love what you're saying about the micro video is the way to go. Like nobody wants to watch a 20-minute video.
Yeah. Well, and if like here's the area that someone's looking at, right? I think about all of this like GPS. If I'm driving from, right, I told you I grew up in Iowa here in Kansas City. If I'm driving from Iowa to Kansas City, I don't actually need to know the roads. I need to know the address, and I need Google Maps to tell me turn left, turn right. And I only need to pay attention to the things. If I got to get gas, I'm going to pay extra attention for that little period of time, and then the rest, I'm just on the highway. Software is sort of the same way. Like in full reality, right? And this is a little bit, I get in trouble when I say this. I think 80% of the people shouldn't learn how to use software. I think that they should be able to execute on it. If I build a workflow twice a year, I shouldn't actually have to spend the 4 hours studying how to do it. I should actually be able to pop up the screen, watch a video, interact with the back screen, not this black off where I have to memorize it, and actually do the execution, follow along so that I can actually get the output. Now, if I do that all the time, I'm going to learn how to do it. If I do it twice a year, I don't actually need to know how to do it. I need to be able to do it. There's a different sort of structure. And when you think about what are you trying to do?
I mean, for sure, most people, especially are also using on mobile, and they're just trying to do their job. They don't care, right? They're like, I work for a call center. The call center says, go here, click here, do this step. I do this all day long. And I don't care. Like I'm just doing my job. And that's the users of most of our software, right? Like they're just trying to do their job.
Yeah. They want a raise, they want a promotion, or they want to not get fired. Their job isn't to love our software. Their job is to go home to their kids and have great birthday parties. And so we get to help facilitate that. I think we lose that as builders and as CEOs and as company. Like, we want people to love our stuff because we think that that's a validation. When it disappears, right? I learned in my old companies, right? Our big sentence was systems should only serve. If the systems become the hero, we've lost priority, right? It should just be done.
So earlier you were telling me that we think a lot about the sales funnel, right? We have top of the funnel, we bring people in, we sell them our software. We're like, you know what? You should have the same sort of adoption funnel. Tell me
Mm-hmm.
your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so if we think about the way the lineup is, right? So onboarding for us it feels a lot like awareness, right? So you're like, okay, when somebody's entering the onboarding, what they're trying to do is they're going through a series of questions. Is this valuable? What is it possible? What can I do? And so when we understand that what we're trying to do is to get them to expand their mindset, just like when someone learns about a company, no one ever writes a blog and then writes a check the next day for $100,000 a year, right? There's a whole thing that has to go through. It's the same thing with software. So from onboarding, then they go to engagement. They're like, okay, I'm showing up here to get this tool. I am actually working to extract this value. That's a different mindset. It's a different user trace, right? Their actions are different. And you can actually see in their actions how fast they get to, right, where the value is, right? How long does it take them to open up that particular tab, right? When they know what they're doing, it's less than a second. When they don't know what they're doing, it's 5 seconds. That's really valuable information, understanding what stage they're at.
Yep.
And so now you're like, here's where this, and then in expansion, by thinking about it in a same funnel, it allows us to ask really interesting questions, or at least I think are interesting. What if an account is at expansion? They've been around for 5 years, but 23% of the users are in onboarding. So now the account is mature, but a significant number of the users are immature. Who's servicing it? Where's that energy go? Where do those focuses go? When we don't think about it in this funnel process and these stages, we can easily think about the account as mature. Well, if we don't treat those 23% as really valuable, those are the decision makers 2 years from now that are going to have influence. And there's someone always building software to compete with yours. And so the new users, they're out trying 5 different ones. If they don't understand the value of where they are now, that's where churn comes a year from now, 2 years from now. But it's hard to quantify that. But the moment we started thinking about it as a full funnel, you can give attention to each stage, have KPIs, have deliverables, have conversations.
Well, I think so. If you're a SaaS company, you know, you're selling some sort of tech product. The way that people think about this is also a lot different for if it's enterprise sales. It's like, oh, they signed up for an annual contract and it's $100,000 a year. Is totally different than it's like, oh, they signed up and it's $50 a month. Like those are also totally different, but they
Yeah.
really shouldn't be that different. But it feels like the enterprise sales never get, they either get too much attention or they don't get enough attention because like, oh, they signed up. I don't really care. They paid for a year. Whatever. They're under a year contract.
Well, and again, though, they're sort of two different structures. Is one when all of the hero goes to the sale, once that revenue's done and that process is that attribution focus is there, and then the mindset of, I talk to a bunch of CS folks and they're like, I'm like, right, how do you know? And they're like, I interview companies and I ask, does the CEO and the C-suite appreciate and think that CS and post sale is important? Like, that's an actual question that the more successful CS managers ask. Like, they do that evaluation. I can't imagine a sales guy or gal going in an interview going, hey, I just need to figure out if this organization believes in sales. Like, the fact that that's even a thing tells us how this entire industry thinks about it, whether it's $50 a month or $500,000
Yeah.
a year. The mindset of they bought, so they're going to continue versus, oh, this is about mining the gold and we should put time, energy, resources about that because it's a recurring revenue. That's the goose that laid the golden egg.
Well, here's the thing. You can't outrun churn. If your churn is really high, you cannot overcome it. Like,
Yep.
for example, let's say you have 1,000 customers and you're going to lose 200 of them a year. Let's say it's high. Let's say it's 300 of them a year. That means you got to find 25 new accounts every month just to keep up with the ones that canceled, right? And for a lot of sales team, that's like an overwhelming number. There's no way that we can even keep up with the churn. Like the churn is killing us, right?
Yep.
And customer success and reducing churn are so critical for any company to succeed. But if you do a really good job at it, it's also what drives all of your referrals, right? And for
Yeah.
most companies, referrals are everything. It's like where most all of your revenue really comes from is from referrals. When you have a trusted person that will go tell their friends and say, hey, you need to use this thing. And that's the opposite of the high churn, right? Like
Yeah.
investing in customer success is critical. And anybody who doesn't get that is probably walking dead.
Yeah. Well, and I always laugh going because we work with product teams, and the product teams are the place where I have like this like special kindred spirit in their heart, right? Because I go, the product team built the product to deliver on the features that the sales team promised, whether they did or not. They have to solve the problems that the customer support people have to deal with, and then they have to build the roadmap for the customer success people and their vision. And they don't talk to the users much at all. And they're like, and you're like, so this could be where some of the breakdown is because as right, we've all done this, right? You're promising as like we want someone to buy our product. We're like, it does this and it does this. And we sort of forget the one day or soon or sort of, and so it becomes misaligned. Churn happens a lot because of misaligned expectations up front. That's hard to address because salespeople are trying to sell. But the more consistent that you've got that, and you can tell the users, here's the value you're going to get. And one of the secrets that we found is how do your users know that they got value? As weird as this is, celebrating progress gives them language to realize they accomplished something. And so we sort of take that for granted. We're like, well, of course, they know how to invite somebody. And you're like, yeah, but when they do, and they're like, oh, I just, made this better, tell them you did something that's going to make this product better.
Well, and I think something else you mentioned there and hit on is the ongoing product marketing. Like product marketing is huge. Every month, telling your customers, we built this new thing. This is the great new thing. This is our roadmap. Like all of that is super important because you may have some customers out there that are a little disgruntled and you're like, hey, back to your point earlier, recurring revenue requires recurring value, right? Like I'm paying for this thing every month. Like I sort of expect to see some improvement, some change, so an enhancement, right? Like I keep paying this for every month. It's everybody's expectation, right? That the product is going to continue to evolve. And I might be frustrated, like, I really don't like that it doesn't do this or this part of it is kind of wonky or whatever it is. The more that you can get out in front of people with really good product marketing is again going to help with adoption. It's going to help reduce churn. It's going to help drive usage. It's going to help drive expansion. All these things like product marketing is also super important.
Yeah. Yeah. And how that ties to pricing, like all of this sort of ties together when you can give somebody language for success and what's going on. And you can tell them, right, and all the backgrounds in psychology, right? When someone feels heard, they'll expand and
Yeah.
they'll continue to grow. And so those product updates and that sort of story in terms of the value, when they can see the progress, it allows them to buy into, oh, I'm on this journey with you. And that's, we've all watched a TV show that we didn't want to because the remote was across the room, right? We've all sort of said, well, they've done okay, we'll continue. But then it gets better. And all of a sudden, the next thing you know, you're like, I'm so glad I stayed through this problem. And so that's
Yeah.
what we can do, but it's an entire structure.
Well, so tell us a little more about your guys' product. You mentioned to me earlier you were doing some really cool stuff with the videos and AI and stuff. Tell us a little more about it.
Yeah, so we've got there's two platforms. Adopt IQ is our primary platform, which is really designed to give role-based dynamic dashboards to the post-sale team. So onboard and success for them to understand what stage their users are, to give them insights so that they can then be actionable, and then the ability to deploy content directly in the app. and an on-demand layer so that the user has the ability to turn it on. One of the primary use cases is, especially in enterprise, people do these like 1, 2, 3 day onboardings. Like they do this full, 3, 6 hour, sometime day onboarding, and then they go away. And they're like, well, what happens if there's a new person or if someone needs to remember it? Because none of us remember that. The ability to take those micros and put them directly in the app so that the user can reference them and watch the 10 seconds and not the 4 hours allows them to get that quickly.
Yeah.
And then we can track, did they watch it? Did they then do the next action? And so all of those things start allowing this refinement loop of information. So Adopt IQ is really designed to deploy content where the user needs it, when they need it, in a way they can use it, and leveraging the data to tell them how to do it. One of the pushbacks, one of the problems that we got was people are like, okay, so you're telling me we should have, let's call it 100 micro videos throughout our site. Who in God's name is going to make those micro videos? And we're always changing it. So do we have to send it out to a marketing agency? Do we have to hire somebody that's a professional voiceover? Like that became a really big problem. And so we built a product called Sequence that's coming out August 1st. It'll be a full commercial release. And it's pretty cool. Really what it does, it allows anybody, and at release, it should be able to translate in 25 languages. But anybody, so be able to do a walkthrough so they can tell their story, sort of go, here's what this is, here's the clicks. But I don't care about the I don't care what your language is. I don't care how good your mic is. We've captured it and we've heard your story, right? Right? It's the show and tell that becomes impactful. We then can take it, run it through our systems, right? Clean it up with AI, which is great and people can do that. But the ability, what we found a way to do is to be able to not, do the speed up the video on the back end. So like the mouse jumps around and is all crazy. We can put it back together where the sound, the clicks are the same. So when it says hit the update button, if it's 20 seconds shorter because the AI person, right, the AI voice was cleaner and there are less words, but it still says click update, add update. Now all of a sudden we allowed us to have anybody make a professional grade video at scale in minutes.
I like that.
And we think about it in 3 primary uses, right? One is at the development. There's a lot of offshore talent right now, right? 70% of the companies build with offshore talent because it's cheaper and there's resources. There's companies like Fullscale that help you with that. And there's, I was watching a pretty well-known video capture company that we all know. Sound rhymes with Zoom, right? But, and they're like, hey, you're a natural, right? Because it's really designed to let these voiceovers within the videos, which are great. But I'm like, I know a tremendous amount of really talented, smart people that aren't video naturals, right? They know what to do, but they don't always sound like they know what to do. There's a gap there. And so what Sequence does, it allows them to be knowledgeable and sound knowledgeable at scale.
I think that's great because a lot of times it is the developers that are building the thing, or it's like a project manager or product manager, whatever different job titles, that they understand what this thing is and they could walk through and show a demo of it, but they're not marketing people. They don't sound real salesy and energetic or whatever. They might be very monotone and boring, like developers that are just doing this walkthrough thing. So yeah, if you can take that content and then add a different audio layer on top of it that's got some more excitement to it and got the right, message, like I think that could be super helpful. Really, really helpful.
Yeah, and then the fun part for us is because of our deployment at the delivery side, and this is coming, it'll be Q3, but imagine a customer success person or an onboarding being able to do dynamic naming. And so now they're like, hey, fill in the name company, F company name, right, through that. And now they could update a CSV with their entire client file and connect it. And imagine in the app, they're able to talk directly to their account using their account name dynamically.
Yeah, very cool.
So that, because we laugh going, how many training videos are sitting in knowledge bases from people that aren't there anymore? People that have been fired or moved on are still training users on software from 2 years ago because the cost is too high. This we can do instantly without having to occur that. So that's Sequence. So between the two of them, we really want to solve this. Like, how do we reach the user and let them follow the tracking of how to do it.
Yeah. Well, this is very cool. Very cool technology. Excited for your launch of this in August. Really appreciate having you on the podcast. Again, like you said, like 70% of people or something do offshore development. You can check us out at Full Scale. We're based in the Philippines, which if you've never hired developers in the Philippines is very different. They're absolutely fantastic. Um, Again, Brett, tell us a little more about if people want to connect with you and Adopt IQ.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, adoptiq.com and adoptsequence.com are the two URLs for that. We're actually working with on both of those, right? We went through change and stuff like that, so be gentle as we went through that. I'm on LinkedIn. We actually started a podcast called the Recurring Value Podcast that we're working
Okay.
with, right, the CS teams and the onboarding, right, to really bring attention to this post-sale funnel structure. So we're launching that. June 24th will be our first episode. We'll do 2 a week, so we're excited about that
Okay.
and sort of really want to make an impact in this industry.
Well, maybe you'll have me on your podcast. So
Yep.
really appreciate having you on. Again, this was Brett Sears, founder and CEO of Adopt IQ. Thank you guys so much. Take care.
Have a good one.